Powered by Riverside FM.
All right, everybody. This next guest of ours needs no introduction, but I'm going to give him one anyways. Friend of the show, our new and official defensive correspondent. Please welcome John Hughes. John, how you doing today?
Doing pretty good, man. Can't complain. How we doing?
Good. So, obviously, this is our season preview episode. And so we're talking about the upcoming season for the Browns, just kind of as a whole. And so I guess where I want to start this with you and what we want to talk about first is the initial 53-man roster was released. Obviously, changes to come, things like that. But what are your initial thoughts for that 53-man roster? Are there any big surprises to you?
I wouldn't say any huge surprises. I guess I was kind of a little surprised on how they did with the quarterbacks and running backs as far as how many guys they kept in the room. I think I saw something come out about Huntley. But I was thinking they were going to go a couple of guys shorter in that quarterback room and trying to build that running back room, just thinking of, the return of Chubb and having guys. And I think they only had two guys in the room from what I saw. But, yeah, other than that, man, I think it's pretty much what I was thinking, man, kind of going into the year.
Yeah, that's fair. I think the only big surprise we had was Dante Foreman being cut, but I think we already talked about it earlier in the show.
Sounds like he'll be back.
It sounds like he's going to be back. So,
John, what about? I know you're an old Cincinnati Bearcat. I don't know if you have any kind of relationship with Juwan, but that was maybe a small surprise since he was a draft pick. Yeah. Have you been in touch with him at all, or do you have any thoughts on? Sounds like he might end up on the practice squad.
Yeah, no, I haven't talked to him since everything came out, but I had talked to him before training camp started. Was a surprise, but not surprised that he's still in the building as far as being on practice squad. And really that's just kind of how teams do when they know, especially with the draft pick, and they know they'll need him at some point. Just getting him, keeping him in the building and keeping him on practice squad. So, yeah, everything is looking bright for him, keep him going towards the future.
The guy sounds like a beast. I mean, what did he do, 39 reps on the bench press at the combine?
Right.
So,
strong.
Not a bad guy to have in the building.
That's strong. All right, so switching gears here a little bit, what are you looking forward to the most with the Cleveland Browns this year?
Man, so for me, I'm looking to see how we play in the big games. You know what I mean? Because I think in Cleveland's like and a big thing is we don't usually get the hype coming into the season, right? So now that we have a little bit more steam, rolling going into the season, I just like to see how we handle it as a team in those tight games, those big games that come, and we don't know what games they are yet, obviously, throughout the season. But as those games come up that mean they're a bit more important, man, seeing how we, attack and approach those games.
We just played schedule game a little bit ago where we went through and picked everybody, all the games throughout the season. I actually gave them a couple losses specifically because they were in prime time. So,
and they definitely have some marquee matchups on that roster. I mean, you got Kansas City late in the year, Miami late in the year. I mean, plus all your division games are against good teams. I mean, at this point, everybody in the division is tough. So,
yeah, and when you talk about primetime games too, as far as just your rhythm, your routine getting thrown off, say you're playing a Thursday night game, right? You're used to getting that, ample amount of rest or whatever. Your routine's a little bit different getting Sunday to Sunday, right? So getting to those primetime games, it kind of throws it off a little bit. So that's just an adjustment that, all players have to figure out. So.
Yeah, and so with that, I mean, we have 2 Thursday night games. So do you have any feelings on that? It's one of the quirks of our schedule this year. It's only like the third time it's ever happened. What do you think about the Browns having 2 Thursday night games?
Me personally, I enjoy Thursday night games. I think when during the season they're played too, because like we were talking about earlier, depending on how the season's going, those big games, it's fun playing prime time and the games mean something, right? Like the last thing guys want to tune into at the end of the season is a Thursday game that nobody's really, competing for a playoff spot or whatever. So the more exciting that game is, the bigger it's going to be. And I think, that's what everybody wants to see.
Yeah, I think the one other weird quirk in that schedule is late in the season where we have the Thursday night matchup, and then you have the following Monday night in Denver. So you're taking it's like almost like the mini bye from Thursday night, but then you're going on the road to play at Mile High. Seems like that might be a difficult stretch for them.
Yeah. So that trip to Mile High would be a little bit of an adjustment. I remember when we would go out to Denver and play, and just the altitude change, going out there a couple of days before, trying to get used to it. It's really something you have to take into factor when you're going into playing a game in Denver. So.
Well, we were even just talking about like just with the time change, right? Like because it's a prime time game, you figure that game's going off at 8:30 or so Eastern time. That you're right at like 6:30. It's like it's an odd time to play a football game. Like if you're used to playing at 1 o'clock on Sundays or even the prime time games, all of a sudden you're playing at dinner time.
yeah, definitely. I mean, and it's crazy because I realized throughout my career, like college, we would prep a little bit different for different time games like that. And in the league, like, I mean, the sense to what we would do to get ready for like a different time game, even as far as like getting our bodies used to shutting down at a certain time. You know what I mean? Like the blue light, right, in your phone. Like we would go through all these little steps just to make sure we were ready for the game. It's just amazing how much stuff we actually do to get ready for those.
Absolutely. And so with that, I mean, one of the big things and one of the reasons why the Browns were so competitive this past season was because of that defense being the number one defense in football. Do you think that the Browns defense continues to dominate this year? You think Jim Schwartz continues to keep them on that track?
Yeah, most definitely. I think we pick up right where we left off. We're bringing back 21 out of 26 key pieces we had last year.
Nice.
I think for us, it's all about bringing it on defense, and then obviously having our offense do what they do. But the games are won. I learned this, starting Little League, right? Championships are won on the defensive side of the ball, man. So if we get it running and keep going on defense, man, we'll be solid.
Yes.
And with that defense being so dominant, how do you think we stack up in the AFC North, which is going to be just like it is every year? It's going to be hard-nosed, smash-mouth football.
Mm-hmm.
Well, there's just talent everywhere, right?
Yeah.
You've got Burrow in Cincinnati. You've got Russell Wilson. Obviously some revitalization there in Pittsburgh where they didn't have an answer at quarterback, and then obviously Derrick Henry moving to Baltimore. I mean, all three of those are just going to be gauntlets.
Yeah.
I mean, you hit it on the head, right? But I feel like with our defense, we have an answer to all of these different things, right? Like we have an answer to the run game in Baltimore. We have an answer to the pass game in Cincy and whatever they're doing in Pittsburgh, right? But I think whatever is on the table, I think our defense, our team overall, but especially our defense, can handle any elements coming.
Yeah, that's fair. No, and it's funny. You mentioned Pittsburgh and whatever they're doing in Pittsburgh. And early on in the offseason, we were like, dang, Pittsburgh is really – they made a lot of moves. They brought in a lot of guys on defense. But then it seems like all of a sudden in preseason, like everything's falling apart for Pittsburgh already. And they do have Mike Tomlin, so we expect them to be right around 500 at least.
It takes time for guys to mesh, right? But I think that defense is going to be tougher than people think.
Yeah.
Definitely.
So, what are your thoughts on Pittsburgh as a whole?
As much as I hate Pittsburgh, I feel like you can never count him out because of Tomlin, right? Because of the work that he's been able, his level, his body of work that he's put in Pittsburgh. But yeah, it's not looking too good for him right now. But they usually find something to figure out throughout the year. So we'll just see how it goes.
And you don't even have to look that far. You look to last season. Like their team wasn't that great, but somehow they ended up winning. What did they win? 10 games last year. So
games,
yeah.
I mean, the thing that we recently had just talked about Pittsburgh, like just the remarkable stability that's there when you think about just from the head coaching position. You had Tomlin, Cowher, and then before that, Chuck Noll for like ever. Yeah. So it's like they've had three coaches in 60 years. I mean, it's something else over there.
Three coaches, three quarterbacks up until after Roethlisberger. Like it's
I tell people that when we talk about the difference, right, in programs between Cleveland and Pittsburgh, right. When I was in Cleveland, literally had 5 head coaches in 4 years, or 4 head coaches in 5 years. Right. So when you have a lot of turnover, you have to keep learning new defenses, learning new schemes. Right. You can never really get comfortable. And when you take a team like Pittsburgh that has the same defense forever, right, they're able to learn the shortcuts within the scheme. So they're not learning X's and O's anymore, but they're learning around the X's and O's and how to make that position better, not just learning,
John, we don't like to talk about those times anymore. We're in a much better place.
Well, the good news is that for the first time in a long time, the Browns have stability at the.
That's what I mean. I said, we don't like to talk about that stability.
It's on the other foot now. You know what I mean? I love what they've been able to build and create in Cleveland, man. I'm just waiting to see it all stack up together.
Exactly. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And no, so with, we talked about the defense and how they're going to dominate again. We talked about the AFC North, and we think we can stack up well against those teams because of the defense. So do you have an overall record prediction for the Browns this year?
Figured you guys were going to ask that. So I feel like with what we have and, going in, staying healthy, I would see us at like 12-5, 13-4.
Whoa, 13! I like that.
We had a hard time going through the schedules. We were kind of prepping our show, and it's like almost like you're looking for losses, because if you start looking at it, it's really easy to just go, man, they should win this, they should win this, they should win that. And 12-5, 13-4 doesn't seem like that much of a stretch, honestly.
Yeah. And I forgot who it was that made the prediction, as a Cleveland fan, and they did like every single game win.
The Miz. He had him going undefeated.
Hey, that was awesome, man. And that speaks volumes of what the definition of a Cleveland fan, right? The hope and the feeling of a Cleveland fan. But just thinking about it in the grand scheme, I feel like there might be some closer games that we have to figure out, and that's the only reason I said 4-5, right? But really, I think as far as the division goes, if we're able to capture the division, win the division, that's the easiest way into the playoffs, right? I think that'd be our best bet.
Yeah, absolutely. And we just, like I mentioned a few minutes ago, we just played the schedule game, and you actually have pretty much the same prediction as Bone and I. We both picked them at 12-5, so you have 12-5, 13-4. We'll just turn yours into 13-4 because I like that. But Kenny, he's over here saying we're looking for losses. He picked him to go 9-8.
I'm just trying to be conservative, Like I just don't want to. I don't want to get overexcited. Every time I get overhyped on this, I end up getting bit. I just want. I'd rather be pleasantly surprised if they win 10, 11, 12 games.
When I said the record you chose, our defensive correspondent said, "Whoa."
But don't you want to be that guy at the end of the season after we go 13-4 that said, "Told you so"? You know what I mean?
I would love to be that guy, John, but 20 years of bad experience tells me I'm not that guy.
John, he decided not to be that guy so that you could be that guy.
There it is, man. This game keeps getting tougher and tougher.
But no, with that, you just mentioned a couple of the questions I had next here. So you said easiest way into the playoffs is winning the division. Do the Browns win the division, and do they make the playoffs? At 13-4, absolutely they make the playoffs. But do they win the division? And how far are they going in the playoffs?
Mm-hmm. So, I believe we're going to win the division. As far as the playoffs, it's really hard to tell, man. It's just about it's where we're at as a team going into the playoffs, right? Because we've all seen those playoff teams that sneak in, and then got teams that are rolling in December, right? We want to be that team that's rolling in December, just knocking off wins. Like, in December you're not losing games, right? You're really getting primed for the playoffs. So it depends on how we look at the end of November going into December as how far we go.
Okay, yeah, I like that. And you said division title. Funny enough, we all picked the Browns to finally win a division title, including Kenny at 9-8. He thinks they're going to win the division at 9-8.
It's going to be tight, man. It's a tight race in the North.
That's a rough season out of the division at 9.
That's what I said. I said at 9-8 we're winning the division. That math ain't mathing, but he thinks it is. So
I think it's going to happen.
So last thing here, John, real quick. Do you have any bold predictions for the Browns this season?
Bold predictions. All right. So if we're going off of the record, right? We're saying 13-4. I feel like we're only gonna bold prediction. I feel like we only lose one division game.
Whoa, that was what Bone had him doing too.
We're gonna sweep 2 and split 1.
I like it.
That's
I like it.
Prediction.
That is, but which the one we're going to lose? What do you think?
Man, well, I would say Baltimore or Cincy. Yeah, it's hard to give that other team a win, man. It's hard to give them one.
Yeah, no, I agree. We actually were just talking about this, how for some reason, just like we seem to lately have Cincinnati's number, Baltimore seems to have Cleveland's number. Even when Cleveland's good, even when Baltimore seems like they're having a not so great a year, whatever, Baltimore for some reason always seems to play the Browns tough and typically come up with a win.
John, let me ask you this. It seems like if you're listening to the national media pundits, people are really, really high on the Cincinnati team. And I know Joe Burrow's coming back and supposed to be healthy, but they've got 12 rookies on that roster. I mean, that's almost a quarter of the roster. Like, are you buying the hype on Cincinnati in this division?
No, and the funny thing is, man, I have to hear the hype from at home with my wife all the time, man. She's a Bengals fan. But honestly, I don't. I'm not, just because I feel like we've heard this type before, right? It's all about what's going to happen and what's played out during the season, man. And really who stays healthy and who's playing the best ball. That's what you have to love about this game, right? You can have every single piece. Everyone can say you're the this and that, right? But until you strap the pads on and line up, man, and figure it out, nothing's really set.
That's fair. Yeah. What about, before we jump off here, what about the headwinds? Let's talk about what do you think maybe is the biggest challenge for the Browns this year? I mean, I think on paper we feel really good about this team, but is there a singular concern or concerns that you have going into this year? Maybe what be it Deshaun's shoulder and the health there? I mean, obviously Nick Chubb's going to miss a few weeks, or is there anything in particular that stands out to you that may just be like a lingering issue for this team?
I wouldn't say a lingering issue. I feel like staying healthy is just the name of the game for every team. It's kind of been our deal for the past couple of years. But staying healthy, and then with all the what they call the circus show coming in, as far as the HBO Hard Knocks coming in, I'm hoping guys just keep the focus on the season and what's important, and not get caught up in and all that. So yeah, between those two.
As much as we're nervous about the Hard Knocks thing, we're also super excited for it. I mean, it's a really cool idea to see it happening like middle of the season. What's going on, the challenges each team is facing, and who's stepping up in the locker room to really kind of right the ship and make sure everything's going in the right direction.
Well, for us, great. Personally, it's going to be a great content.
That's what I mean.
It's pretty cool. It's like the first time we get to see like a live look as far as a whole division throughout that end of the season time, man. So I think that's a pretty cool perspective. I just hope we all take it with for what it is, man. So
absolutely. And so real quick, one last question for you, John. It looks like you're in a barbershop. Tell us a little bit about where you're at right now.
Yeah, man. So I'm actually at one of my barbershops called King Culture Barber Studio. We started this shop, me and my business partner, 5 years ago. We're able to do so well in one of our locations that we opened up our second one. And really, we cater to all textures of hair, right? Straight, curly, whatever it is.
Awesome.
You guys should have took me there to get my head shaved.
We should have. It's a little bit further away.
It's a longer drive.
Yeah, it's a little bit further away. Yeah.
John, I think actually since the last time we talked, this is the first time you're seeing our new studio. What do you think of our new digs?
Oh, I'm loving it, man. It's looking really nice. Oh yeah,
we're trying. We're doing what we can.
We're trying to keep up with the Joneses,
Yeah.
Most definitely got you right.
Absolutely. Well, hey, John, we really appreciate your time. All of our listeners, you're going to be hearing a lot more of John Hughes. As I said at the top of this interview, he is our official defensive correspondent. We're going to have him on as often as he's willing to be on this year to talk about the defense, talk about the rest of the Browns team, and just keep us informed, because he's a guy that's done it. He's been there, done it, and he knows exactly what's going on in the NFL. So, John, thank you so much. Tell your wife the Bengals suck.
And happy birthday to Mrs. Hughes.
Oh yeah.
Oh, happy birthday too. Yeah.
And as far as the segment, guys, man, I'm excited to get on, man. Talk a lot of Browns defense, man, and hopefully we have a lot of good stuff to talk about, man. So, looking forward to it.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Thanks so much, John.
All right, man. You guys take it easy.
Powered by Riverside FM.